What's up guys, Ame here with another video. Gaining reputation is arguably one of the most important things you have to do in TBC, and Outlands is chock full of different factions that you can gain favor with as you earn more reputation with them. With how small Outlands is and with how crowded it will be at launch, dungeon grinding is going to be the way to go to level up your character, and as you do these dungeons you will gain reputation with the associated faction. But why is getting this reputation so important, and why is it talked about so much? You of course have heroic dungeons that can only be unlocked once you reach Revered with the dungeon's associated reputation faction, but another great part of gaining your street cred with these factions is the juicy loot they'll offer you once you're best buds, with some of this loot being competitive best in slot for not only your pre-bis set, but even later into the game. In this one, we'll take a look at the best ways to farm all the reputations available at launch, all that sweet loot that you can get from grinding out that reputation, and where these items fit into your pre-bis lists. Buckle up guys, because this is gonna be a big one. Let's get into it. Real quick guys, you know the drill. If this video gets you all sorts of excited for the awesome rewards you can get from earning reputation in TBC, hit that subscribe button. It helps me get more content out like this and I greatly appreciate it. Also, I'm going to include timestamps so that you can easily jump to the different factions for fast reference on how to grind the rep and the rewards you can get. As soon as you walk through the dark portal on launch day, you will be greeted by the beautiful scorched landscape of Hellfire Peninsula, and that's where we're going to start. Take a second, breathe in that sweet nostalgia. Now let's get to work on gaining favor with either Honor Hold if you're Alliance or Thrallmar if you're Horde. To gain your rep with these factions, run Ramparts or Blood Furnace up to Honored. Once Honored, you're going to want to do all the quests, then Shattered Halls Normals and all the Heroics to Exalted. One thing to note is that you can do the PvP daily to get Marks of Thrallmar or Marks of Honor Hold, which can then be used to purchase favors, which increase your reputation gain by 25% and experience gain by 5% for 30 minutes. Having these while leveling is going to be a massive boost, and it will be a PvPer's dream in Hellfire Peninsula at launch, with the amount of people trying to cap these towers. Once exalted, some pretty sweet weapons open up. Let's take a look at the caster one first, with Blade of the Archmage or Stormcaller. A caster's pre-raid bis is the Gladiator Spellblade from Arena Season 1, followed by Eternium Runeblade, a blacksmithing BoE, with this blade coming in third. We're not sure when the first Arena season will start, and the Eternium Runeblade, while really good, is very expensive to craft, flexing 8 Primal Mites and 2 Primal Nethers along with other metals and gems. Since you'll most likely be running a lot of dungeons to begin with, this weapon is a no-brainer to go for and only has a couple less spell damage and intellect compared to the Eternium Runeblade. Compared to Naxxis, we have Wraithblade, and it's pretty safe to say that it has nothing on this weapon, having over 60 less spell power and less crit. The only bonus is it having 8 more hit rating. Next up, we have a ranged weapon for all you physical DPS dealers, the Veteran's Musket if you're Horde, and Marksman Bow if you're Alliance. This is a really good weapon for hunters, 12 agility, 22 attack power, and 11 crit, and has really good damage. The only thing better for hunters here is again, the Gladiator's Heavy Crossbow from Arena Season 1. Now even more so than hunters, this weapon is full bis for rogues and DPS warriors, arguably all the way into T6 rating. Serpent Spine Longbow off of Lady Vosh and SSC, and Arcanite Steam Pistol off of Alar and Tempest Keep are both better, but you'll be fighting hunters for this weapon, and it will probably be prio to them. What's crazy is that this weapon is essentially Striker's Mark from Molten Core with an extra 12 agility. Can we talk about that for a second? A weapon from Molten Core, the very first raid in Classic WoW, is almost as good as an exalted reputation reward in Outlands that will last you into T5 or T6 rating. That is absolutely insane. On the tank side of things, we have Warbringer or Honor's Call, a solid option for both prop paladins and warriors. Prop warriors will ideally want to go for the Sun Eater and Heroic Mechanar, and prop paladins have a better reputation option in Gavel of Unearthed Secrets from Lower City Exalted. But if you have Exalted with Thrallmar, this is a great option to pick up and just go and tank some raids. Lastly, from the Hellfire Peninsula factions, we have Ancestral Band, an amazing healing ring that unlocks at only Revered rather than Exalted. This ring is right there with some of the best pre-bis rings that you can get in this phase, like Band of Halos for 25 Badges of Justice, Ring of Fabled Hope from the Black Stalker and Heroic Underbog, and Band of the Crystalline Void off of Yor and Heroic Mana Tombs. It also is competitive with best in slot rings from classic WoW like Cauterizing Band, Molten Core item again, you love to see it, Pure Lamentium Band, Ring of the Martyr, and many others. Since you already have to get revered to access the Hellfire Citadel heroics, this ring should be on every healer's list as a quick pickup. Now these factions not only give rewards in the form of armor and weapons, but best in slot patterns and formulas for crafters. Enchanters, you'll have access to the Subtlety to Cloak enchant at Exalted, which reduces the threat generation of the wearer, and enchant chest exceptional stats, which is a great chest enchant for everyone in the game. It will also get the Healing to Bracers enchant, which increases healing done by 30 and is best in slot for every single healer. Leatherworkers will be rolling in the gold once they get exalted and unlock Nether Cobra leg armor, as every physical DPS dealer will want to put this on their gear. They also get access to the Fellstalker BOE crafted set. These items are very good for both enhancement shamans and hunters, with the bind on pickup even nether scale set really being the only thing better with some exceptions. So for hunters and enhanced shamans without leatherworking, this will be the way to go. There's some slots like the chest slot hunters won't wear because of Beast Lord and other things, but overall a great pickup for both classes. Jewel crafters, you'll get the recipe to transmute a Skyfire Diamond at Honored, which is needed to make some amazing meta gems like Chaotic Skyfire Diamond and Mystical Skyfire Diamond. Alchemists will get the recipe for Elixir of Major Agility at Honored as well, which is like the Elixir of Mongoose's sibling, having 10 more agility and 8 less critical strike rating. Last but not least, at Revered, healers will gain access to the Glyph of Renewal, their best in slot helm enchant. When applied, this gives 35 healing, 12 spell power, and 7 MP5. A solid step up from the ZG enchants for every healing class and a whole lot easier to get. No more of those dreaded idle runs. Now what's getting exalted with a faction in World of Warcraft without picking up a sweet tabard? On the Horde side, the Thrallmar tabard is expertly designed. They got crazy and used 4 different colors on this tabard, but it works and is looking fresh. I give this tabard a solid 9.5 out of 10. Now over Honor Hold, I mean it's decent, but nothing special. Definitely not my favorite tabard, but I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Venture west and you'll discover the Cenarion Expedition under the canopies of giant mushrooms in Zangarmarsh. To gain favor with these tree huggers, run slave pens in Underbog and turn in unidentified plant parts to Lorana, Tharwell, and Cenarion Refuge all the way to Honored. Unidentified plant parts have the potential to give you an uncatalogued species, which gives 500 rep when turned in. If you get some of these, do not turn them in until Honored when you can't get rep from dungeons or the plant turn-ins. Once Honored, do all the quests for Cenarion Expedition. Now these quests are all over Outlands, and I mean all over. They're everywhere, pretty much in every zone, so make sure you look those up and do them. Also, turn in these uncatalogued species and run Steam Vaults until your eyes bleed with a mix-in of the heroics once you hit Revered until you eventually get exalted. In the Coilfang Reservoir dungeons, you will also loot Coilfang armaments that can be turned in for rep all the way to exalted. Since the Cenarion Circle is a harmonious order of hippies that guides and keeps watch over the world's druids, you know they're gonna hook up their druid friends with a weapon when they reach exalted. Earth Warden is a great weapon for you bear tanks, giving solid attack power and tons of defense and expertise. Let's meme a bit here and pretend a druid actually got ATS. Stand by for angry druids in the comment section. I know it's a joke, don't murder me, I know there's druids that have it. Interestingly enough, the druid version of ATS gets a buff in TBC, so it's only going to have about 100 less attack power, but it has defense and expertise to boot, so it's a pretty good upgrade and a go-to weapon for bears. On the healing side of things, we've got the Windcaller's Orb. This orb will have Holy Priest, Holy Paladins, and Resto Druids drooling, packing massive amounts of the stats they're looking for: Intellect, Spirit, and bonus healing. Also a great pickup for Resto Shamans, but beat out by items like Tears of Heaven from badges and Foul Signet of Cleansing from heroic ramps, which have more MP5 on them. Compared to Naxxis, Saffron's Right Eye, it's honestly pretty close, only having a little less in MP5 instead of Spirit. Last up from Cenarion, we have Ashien's Gift. Hit-hungry casters like Warlocks, Fire Mages, and Boomkins will be after this ring like Gollum to try and get to hit cap. This is almost double the amount of hit compared to other previous ring options like Sparking Arcanite Ring in Heroic Old Hillsbroad Foothills and Seal of the Exorcist for 50 Spirit Shards. Even looking at some of the best rings from Nax, this ring alone almost has 3 times as much hit. So casters, if you need some more hit, you better become best of friends with these druids in Zangarmarsh. On the profession side of things, you have heavy cleft hoof set unlocked at friendly and honored for leatherworkers, the legs being full prebis for bear tanks, and the chest and boots being very competitive options in their slots. Leatherworkers also get the pattern to craft nether cleft leg armor, increasing stamina by 40 and agility by 12, which tanks will be all over. Hunters using bows will be after revered here to get Warden's arrows, the best pre-raid arrow option for them hands down. Enchanters will get the formula for Spell Strike to Gloves, a great enchant for those hit-starved casters that have yet to reach hit cap, as well as enchant Cloak Stealth at Exalted. At Honored, you jewel crafters get the much needed Transmute Earthstone Diamond, which they will again need to craft meta gems. Blacksmiths get the plans for Adamantite Weight Stones, Adamantite Sharpening Stones, and Greater Rune of Warding, as well as the patterns for some really good nature resist gear that can be used in Coilfang Reservoir Raid, Serpent Shrine Caverns on bosses like Hydros. You alchemists, you have loads of patterns you can pick up, such as the recipes for Major Nature Protection Potion, Flask of Distilled Wisdom, yes, the very same one from Classic, Earthen Elixir, and the nice Transmute Primal Water to Air. Now this is really good because Primal Water will most likely be easier to farm than Primal Air, so this recipe could be very lucrative for you alchemists to make a little bit of money. Melee DPS, you will also want to pick up the Glyph of Ferocity at Revered. This is your best in slot helm enchant that increases attack power by 34 and hit rating by 16. Bonus loot from getting exalted with Cenarion Expedition is arguably the most underappreciated flying mount in TBC. I love this thing, the Cenarion War Hippogriff. I mean, Nether Drakes, they're cool and all, whatever, but come on, who doesn't want to fly around on an armored feathered horse eagle? It's pretty freaking cool. Alright, now for the most important part, let's look at what these druids are going to offer us in the form of a fashionable tabard. We've got a little mint chocolate action going on. They definitely leaned into their whole nature vibe on this one. I think it looks good, but it doesn't reach that great area. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. Heading south, we'll take a look at the refugee center of Shattrath, the lower city. You can prove your loyalty to these refugees in a variety of ways. You can go on an Arakoa killing spree and turn in the feathers of your victims for rep up to honored. There's tons of quests you can do, and of course, do the dungeon grinding. Akani Crypts and Sethic Halls up to honored, Shadow Labs all the way up to exalted, and of course, all of these on heroic difficulty will get you some rep from revered to exalted as well. Note that Mana Tombs gives Consortium rep, not lower city. So what does this ragtag group of refugees offer you? At Revered, you have the Lower City Prayer Book, and this trinket is actually really interesting. It gives you 70 healing and has an on-use effect of reducing the mana cost of your healing spells by 22 for 15 seconds. Now the interesting part is that it is not unique, so you can equip 2 of these and they're a solid pickup until you get better trinkets. Trinkets like Eye of the Dead and Rejuvenating Gem from Classic are still better than this, so don't worry about picking this up if you're bringing those trinkets over from Classic. For a weapon, we have Gavel of Unearthed Secrets, and this is really good for Shadow Priests, Elemental Shamans, Balanced Druids, and even Prop Paladins, being all of their prebus outside of an arena weapon or a crafted blacksmithing weapon, and beats any classic weapon by a mile. Lastly, for gear, there's the Shapeshifter Signet, a ring that boasts 20 expertise. Now, expertise is pretty rare in the game in Phase 1, so DPS classes like Rogues and Enhancement Shamans should be all over this ring. In TBC, enchanters gain access to 4 exclusive ring enchant formulas that only they can use, with enchant ring stats coming from Lower City Honored. You will also get the enchant for Dodge the Cloak at Exalted, not super important, but it has its uses. Alchemists get the recipe for Flask of Chromatic Resistance, another classic flask at Exalted, and more importantly, the recipe for Elixir of Major Shadow Power, increasing shadow spell damage by 55. With how many Warlocks and Shadow Priests we'll see in TBC, this will be a good moneymaker for your alchemists, as they'll be popping these like candy. Lastly, from Lower City, we have the Glyph of the Outcast, an interesting glyph that increases strength and intellect. I don't see this glyph getting much use, maybe by like a feral druid, but there's better head enchants that you can get. Now these guys may be refugees, but they rock a solid, underappreciated tabard. It's not fancy, gaudy, or in your face at all, but it hits all the right notes with those earthy tones. I'm gonna go ahead and give this tabard a 7 out of 10. Heading right upstairs to the central sanctum of Shattrath, you will find the Sha'tari Quartermaster, where you will purchase your rewards as you increase your rep with the Sha'tar. Gaining rep with them is a little easier since every dungeon in Tempest Keep gives rep all the way to Exalted, both normal and heroic. You can also do chain quests in Netherstorm, Shadowmoon Valley, and Terakar Forest to get your rep, with the Arcatraz key quest giving a big chunk of it. Another interesting way to get rep with these guys is by turning any of the rep turnips for Aldor or Scryer. So we're talking Sun Fury Signets and Arcane Tomes, and Marks of Sargeras and Fel Armaments on the Aldor side. Turning in any of these will also give you rep for the Sha'tar. Once exalted, healers that can equip maces get the Gavel of Pure Light, a very competitive pre-raid bis weapon that is only beat out by the arena weapon, Hand of Eternity from Blacksmithing, and Shockwave Truncheon in Heroic Shadow Labs. Compared to Phase 6 bis and Classic, we have Hammer of the Twisting Nether, a pretty big upgrade of 60 healing, so definitely worth picking up. Ziri's Gift, or however you say this thing, is an okay trinket for casters and maybe like a Holy Paladin, but not anything super special. You can pick it up if you don't have anything better. Bis trinkets from Classic like Neltharion's Tear and Restrained Essence of Sapphiron are much better than this. For prop paladins and prop warriors, we have Crest of the Sha'tar, a really good shield that they should definitely pick up. Azure Shield of Kuldara for 33 Badges of Justice is super similar, but either one of these is really good. If it were me, I would just pick up whichever one was easier for me to get. This shield is better than Face of Death from Noxramis, but not by as much as I would think. The 2 blue sockets definitely make this a worthwhile upgrade to go for though. This is the most important reputation for healers with enchanting, since at Revered, you unlock the enchanting exclusive Healing Ring enchant, which increases healing by 20 on each ring. Enchanters also get 2 more best in slot healing enchants in Enchant Gloves Major Healing, increasing healing by 35, and Enchant Weapon Major Healing, increasing healing by 81. At Exalted, they will also get the Threat to Gloves enchant, which can be really useful for tanks. You jewel crafters get hooked up from these guys with the pattern for Insightful Earthstorm Diamond. This metagem gives 12 intellect and a chance on spellcast to return mana, and healers are going to be all over this thing, so you can make some sweet cash from it. They also get the pattern for Alchemist Stone at Revered, and this is actually a really good trinket that increases the effect of health and mana potions by 40% and could definitely see some use. Last but not least, we have Leatherworkers getting the infamous Drums of Battle. Now at the time of making this video, the current state of drums is that weird 2 forms of drums, with this one being the lower level of drums and only having an 8-yard range. We'll see what Blizzard ends up doing with them, but for now, just know that this is where you get them. Lastly, we have the Head enchant, and this time it's for you casters, adding 22 spell power and a nice 14 hit rating. Alright, time to rate this tabard. Honestly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I think this is the ugliest tabard from any reputation in the game. I could see it maybe working on some gear sets, and I probably will get some backlash from this, but overall just a flop, 1 out of 10. Last up for the reputation factions that are linked to dungeons, we have to travel all the way back to Azeroth to check out the Caverns of Time in Tanaris. Proving your worth to these dragons is fairly easy and straightforward. You have to do a series of quests for the Karazhan attunement, and these give you a good amount of rep. Once completed, just spam Black Morass and you'll be good to go. Once you're done doing endless dungeons on repeat, you'll be able to access these rewards. Continuum Blade at Revered is a solid weapon option for paladin tanks. It has a nice fast attack speed, tons of stamina, and a good amount of spell power. Bindings of the Time Walker are very competitive healing bracers that have a massive 64 bonus healing. These bracers have 11 more bonus healing than the highest bonus healing bracers from Classic that drop off the Twin Imps in AQ40, so these are a great pickup for pretty much any healer. For rogues, there's the Rift Maker, a really nice dagger that has an interesting chance on hit proc to encase an enemy in a temporal rift, increasing the time between their attacks by 10% for 10 seconds. Looking at Kingsfall and Destings from Classic, the Bis daggers, it's definitely an upgrade, but not as massive as some of the other upgrades we've seen. But still worth the pickup if you reach the Exalted and need something a little better. Where the Sha'tar had tons of upgrades for healers, the Keepers of Time hook the casters up, with Enchant Gloves Major Spell Power and Enchant Ring Spell Power at Honored for Enchanters. At Exalted, Enchanters will also be able to pick up superior agility to gloves. Last up for the Helm enchant is our lovely tanks, getting Glyph of the Defender, which adds 16 defense rating and 17 dodge to their helm. Other than that, there isn't much else that's like super good. You've got the pattern for Drums of Panic for Leatherworkers, which are drums that cause an AoE fear, a meta gem designed for jewel crafters, and the Flask of Supreme Power recipe for alchemists. Oh, and of course, how could I forget, the best item you can get from the Keepers of Time is obviously the toy dragon. I mean, what beats a wooden dragon that just sits in your bag and doesn't do anything that will cost you a gold? A pretty sweet pickup from Keepers of Time, if I do say so myself. For their tabard, the Bronze Dragonfly are definitely leaning into their name with the Bronze Tabard, and honestly, it's working. Not the best tabard I've seen, but we'll give it a solid 7.2 out of 10. Going back to the Outlands to Zangarmarsh, we have the Sporeggar, which Wowhead calls a mostly peaceful race of mushroom men. And I just can't imagine these little guys doing anything violent. But if they did, that would low-key be nightmare fuel to see an army of these running at you. Starting at unfriendly rather than neutral, what you're going to want to do is grind Boglords and Marsh Lurkers to neutral, turning in Boglord tendrils to this guy Fossin for the quest Natural Enemies, and all these spore stacks you see laying around, pick those up and turn them into the same guy. From neutral to friendly, channel your inner herbalist and add Glow Cap to this same rotation, which can be found all over Zangarmarsh and turned into this guy, who we'll call Mishifin. Note that these can only be turned in from neutral to friendly. Also from unfriendly all the way up to honored, you can run the Underbog and get rep with Sporeggar, which will probably be the way to go with how people will be leveling in TBC. Once friendly, you can begin turning in Sanguine Hibiscus to Tishu for rep. You can also collect Fertile Spores, which drop from all sorts of mobs in Zangarmarsh, and turn them into my man G-Shaft, or by killing some Bloodscale Naga for this other guy G-Zunt for the quest Now That We're Friends, and just keep doing that until exalted. Now these tiny mushroom men are actually going to carry arguably one of the most important items in the game, the Petrified Lichen Guard. With how popular Paladin AoE farming will be, this shield is used for exactly that, afflicting every attacker with a deadly poison each time you block. Based on how expensive Skullflame shields are, put your plant picking gloves on and get to work making friends of these little guys. There's also the recipe to transmute Primal Earth to water at Revered for Alchemists, and this could be used to easily make some money, since Primal Water will be much more expensive than Primal Earth. Last but not least, we have the tiny Sporebat, which makes this grind all worth it. Competitively best in slot, this is a solid, almost must-have pickup for all players. If the Sporebat isn't enough to sell you, how about the best tabard in all of TBC? Yes, I said it. Once exalted, get ready to look like an absolute Chad, rocking the blue and purple and flexing that mushroom on your chest. Enemies will know that you mean business when they see that mushroom on your chest. 15 out of 10, highly recommend, get exalted with Sporeggar. Now let's head on over to the best zone ever created. I will say this in every one of my videos, we're going to Nagrand to take a look at the Mag'har and the Kurenai. Grinding this rep is very straightforward. Do all the quests and then get your Lust for Blood on and go on an ogre killing rampage. The ogre themselves give you rep, and you can turn in the war beads they drop for more rep. There aren't really any great items from these factions. The quiver is pre-raid bis for hunters, which is nice, but you can get the same one from the Consortium. You do have a couple of patterns for the Drums of Restoration and the Drums of Speed, which could definitely see some use. The two pieces of gear that would actually see some use as pre-bis are the Talbot Hide Spalders for physical DPS and Tempest Leggings for Boomkins and Elemental Shamans. But the time you'd have to put in to get to Revered and these only being pre-bis and being replaced in raid make this not worth it at all in my opinion. The most important thing people will be farming this rep for is the Talbot mount you get at Exalted, an actually really cool ground mount that is well worth the grind in my opinion. For the Horde on the Mag'har side, we've got a sleek tabard, minimalist, so fresh and so clean. This tabard will make any Zugger look like an absolute champion 9 out of 10. In classic Alliance fashion, they definitely tried a little too hard on their tabard. You can tell they tried to one-up the Mag'har but didn't quite hit the mark. The Golden Maroon do not look as fresh, but it's still a great tabard overall, 8.5 out of 10. Next up, we have the group of ethereal smugglers and thieves that can be found all throughout the Outlands, the Consortium. The ideal way to farm this rep is going to run Mana Tombs normal up to Honored, and then do all the Consortium quests found in Nagrand and Netherstorm. Then you'll want to farm tons of Xaxes Insignias off the Xaxis south of Area 52 in Netherstorm all the way to Exalted. and then run Mana Tomb's Heroic daily. Obsidian Warbeads in the ground can also be turned in for Consortium rep. While the gearing options are pretty lackluster here, many fantastic profession recipes come from these guys. You have the Fell Leather set for leatherworkers, and this thing is absolutely disgusting. Pre-raid Biss for literally every physical damage dealer. Hunters, of course, you will be wearing Beast Lord. I have to mention that so that the hunters don't flip out at me in the comments. There's the Striking Ring enchant for enchanters that is supposedly gonna be really good, and you have enchant weapon Major Striking at Honored, increasing weapon damage by 7. Tailors will get the Bag of Jewels to craft, a gem bag for jewel crafters, and engineers get Elemental Seaphorium charge. And then at Exalted, jewel crafters will get the recipe for Relentless Earthstorm Diamond. Now this meta gem is absolutely disgusting. Any class that uses agility as a major stat will want this meta gem. I'm telling you right now that if you're a jewel crafter and are one of the first on your server to get this pattern, you are going to make some serious cash. So grind this fast if you want to make some money. Now, something really cool about the Consortium is that once you reach friendly, you will be considered a member of the Consortium, and they will put you on their monthly Consortium newsletter email list and receive a bag of gems in the mail every month. Your status with them will determine how good these gems are, and at Exalted, you can actually get some really nice rare gems. So you can make a decent amount of cash just by being friends with these guys. Now remember, they are thieves and smugglers, so the validity of how they obtain these gems may be a little murky, but hey, gold is gold. For the Tabard, they're keeping it simple. We've got a classic looking Tabard. It's nothing fancy, but it works. But I'd expect something a little more extravagant if I'm grinding a difficult rep to Exalted. We'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. Lastly, we have the Violet Eye, originally sent by the Kirin Tor to spy on Medivh and Karazhan. They now remain defending against the evil that now resides in the tower. Making friends of these guys is easy and straightforward. You ready? Run Karazhan every week. That's it. Easy as that, and you'll get to Exalted. The biggest reward here is the ring you get at Friendly that you'll be able to upgrade at each new reputation level. At Exalted, this ring is good. I wouldn't say great except for a few classes like Holy Priests and Bear Tanks, but a solid option if you don't have anything better. Other rewards from the Violet Eye are a little lackluster. You have some crafted Frost Res gear that can be useful for Hydros and SSC. Hunters, you'll actually be excited because you get access to some great ammo at Revered with mysterious arrows and shells. And then at Exalted, enchanters get a solid enchant with enchant weapon Major Agility, increasing agility by 20. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, we don't even get a Tabard from these guys. What a ripoff. Now, I know I said lastly with the Violet Eye, and you're probably wondering and sitting there, but Ame, the Aldor, and the Scryer. I know. Let's go over them, but there's a lot to unpack, so let's go fast through this. Since you have to pick one or the other, I don't really want to focus on pre-Biss gearing here in this guide, since I don't think you should base your decision off gear that will be replaced in raid, but rather some items that will last longer than that, and of course the shoulder enchants. Gaining rep with the Aldor and Scryer is very straightforward. You're going to want to turn in Marks of Sargeras and Fell Armaments for rep, as well as do the quests all the way to Exalted. Same thing on the Scryer side, but you're turning in Sun Fury Signets and Arcane Tomes, as well as doing the quests. For the shoulder enchants, let's start with the tanks. We have the Inscription of Warding and of the Night. The Scryer enchant helps with defense cap up front, but overall the Aldor one is better later into the game. For the healers, this is probably the easiest choice in the whole game, Aldor all the way. The Inscription of Faith is far and away better than the Inscription of the Oracle. The caster one is interesting, because the Inscription of Discipline is better for classes like Shadow Priest that value more spell power over crit, while the Inscription of the Orb is great for people like Elemental Shams and Mages that value crit more. However, something that should be taken into consideration is the Scryer's Blood Gem on the Scryer side. A trinket that has an absolutely ridiculous amount of hit, 32, as well as a use effect that increases spell damage by a good amount. This trinket pretty much pushes every caster to want to go Scryer, so keep that in mind. For melee DPS, it really depends on your class, with most classes leaning Scryer for this one. Again, it just depends, but at the end of the day, the differences between these shoulder enchants is so small. And do you want to know my honest opinion for which side to pick? Do you like red or blue better? Or blood elves or space goats better? and most importantly, who has the better tabard. You know the Scryers with their stuck-up ways are going to have a fresh tabard, rocking the black and gold. The black and gold is a staple and arguably one of the most popular colorways in tabard. It's not edgy, but it doesn't have to be. The Scryers are keeping it safe and rocking it, 8 out of 10. The Aldor, on the other hand, it's pretty much what I expect from the Space Goats. Purple with a lighter purple border. It's just not doing it for me. Some of you may like it, but I just don't. Scryer wins this round, 2 out of 10 for the Aldor. If you were super invested in the Tabard ranking for all these factions, here's all of them in order. At number 12, we have the Sha'tar. This one sucked. Number 11, we have the Aldor. Number 10, Honor Hold. I kind of regret this one. This one is kind of cool, but we'll leave it here for now. Number 9, Cenarion Expedition. Number 8, Lower City. Number 7, Keepers of Time with the bronze. Number 6, Consortium, keeping it simple. Number 5, the Scryers with the black and gold. Number 4, Kurenai. Number 3, the Maghar. Number 2, Thrallmar. And then, of course, at number 1, the ultimate Chads, the Sporeggar. There you have it, guys. All the reputation factions in phase 1, how you grind that rep, the rewards you get from them, all that stuff. If you're actually watching this outro, 1, I commend you for making it this far, and 2, thank you so much for watching the video and supporting the channel. It really does mean a lot. If you're here and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. I'm also live on Twitch throughout the week. Catch the link below and come hang out. We do giveaways every month for free Ame TV merch, kind of like what I'm wearing right now. And we do it in a lot of fun ways. Gambling, raffles, slot machines, you name it. We have a ton of fun. We're playing the beta, so stop by. I'd love to see you guys sometime. That's it for me today though, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Healing me for absolutely 0 health. Oh! Oh! Ah! Oh my gosh.